It was a Friday night in DC, late spring, warm enough for people to be out way too late. I'd been at a birthday thing for a friend of a friend, one of those social circles where you know 3 people and smile at everyone else. I didn't drink much, just nursed a couple beers and waited out the evening so it wouldn't seem rude when I dipped. By the time I requested my Uber, it was 12:41 a.m. I was standing outside the bar, scrolling on my phone, trying to ignore a group of drunk guys arguing loudly near a food truck. My app showed a black Honda Civic arriving in 3 minutes. Driver's name was Alex, 4.9 stars, plate 6A7, KJ1. I remember that clearly because I repeated the plate in my head like I always do. I'm cautious with rideshares. Always check the plate. Make sure the driver confirms your name. Usual stuff. About 2 minutes later, a black Honda Civic pulled up. I stepped toward it just as another girl did too. She was maybe mid-20s, tall, light brown hair tied up, leather jacket. We looked at each other awkwardly. "You waiting for an Uber?" she asked. "Yeah, black Civic." She kind of laughed. "Same. For Alex." We both paused. I glanced at the plate. 6A7, KJ1. Right car. We looked at the driver. He didn't say anything, just gave us both a nod and reached over to unlock the doors. It was weird that he didn't speak up, but some drivers are like that. Quiet, not into small talk. Maybe we're sharing?" I said. She shrugged and got in on the passenger side. I slid in behind her, assuming maybe Uber had auto-pulled us. It's happened before. The car started moving before the doors even fully shut. A few seconds in, I looked at my app. It still said, "Waiting for driver." That made my stomach sink a little. I leaned forward. "Hey, are you Alex?" No answer. He just kept driving, eyes fixed on the road. Mid-30s maybe, shaved head, tan complexion. Looked normal enough. He didn't acknowledge me at all. I looked at the girl. She was staring down at her phone. "Mine says he hasn't picked me up yet," I said. She glanced at hers, then frowned. "Same." I cleared my throat. "Excuse me? Sir." He still didn't say anything. The car made a left, off the main road, onto a quieter street lined with warehouses and lots fenced off with graffiti-covered panels. My heart rate started to pick up. "Stop the car," I said. My voice cracked a little. "Seriously, this isn't funny." He still didn't respond. His grip on the wheel was tight. I reached for the door handle. Locked. The girl tried hers too. Also locked. "What the fuck?" she shouted. That's when the driver said something. Calm, almost under his breath. No screaming. I froze. So did she. His voice didn't sound threatening, but there was something so off about it. Too composed. Like he'd practiced saying that. I leaned forward and shouted, "Let us out of the car." He didn't react. Didn't even blink. The girl next to me started dialing 911, but the moment her screen lit up, he swerved the car hard to the right and grabbed something from the side compartment near the seat. I couldn't see what it was, but it made her drop her phone. We were both now fully panicked. Okay, she stammered, holding her hands up. "Please just let us out. We won't say anything." I was looking for something, anything, I could use. My phone was still in my pocket, and I tried discreetly to hit the side button 5 times to trigger the emergency call feature. Nothing happened. I don't know if it didn't go through or if I was doing it wrong, but I didn't hear the tone. My screen was dark. The car turned again, this time down a narrow alley behind a shuttered grocery store. Dumpsters on both sides. No lights. The driver pulled all the way down and stopped behind a chain-link gate. We were boxed in. That's when the girl lost it. She lunged forward, trying to grab the steering wheel or maybe open his door. He reached back with the object in his hand, a small flashlight or baton, and hit her square across the side of the head. I screamed. She slumped back, dazed, holding her face. "Open the f***ing door," I shrieked. I was trying to kick my way through the window, but they were aftermarket tinted ones, thick and reinforced. Not shatterproof, but not breaking easily either. Then, this part still messes with my head. He calmly turned around and said, "Neither of you were supposed to get in." "What?" I said, still shaking. I was waiting for someone else. That's all he said. He got out of the car and walked around to the trunk. I think that moment, the sound of his door slamming shut, is what snapped the girl back to life. She grabbed the flashlight he'd dropped and started smashing the rear window. I kicked at the other side. After a few hits, one of the corner panels cracked. He must have heard. He ran back, tried to yank the rear door open from outside, But in doing that, he must have unlocked the system because suddenly I felt the handle give. I opened the door and threw myself out onto the ground. The girl followed, bleeding but on her feet. We sprinted out of the alley, not even looking back to see if he was chasing us. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. My heart felt like it was going to rip through my chest. Eventually, we made it to a 24-hour gas station about 5 blocks away. The clerk behind the counter let us call the police and lock the doors. By the time cops arrived, he was gone. And here's the part that still haunts me. When I opened my Uber app again, there was a message saying my ride had been canceled because the driver never showed. Same for her. That wasn't Alex's car. It wasn't a real Uber. But somehow, he had the exact same car, the exact same license plate. Down to the letter. The police were baffled. They took our statements, pulled security footage from nearby businesses, and even put out a bulletin for the Civic. But nothing ever came back. It was like the guy vanished. They asked us to describe him. I gave them every detail I could remember, his face, his voice, the scar under his left eye. But I doubt they ever found him. We didn't even know each other's names. The girl and I. We'd gone through this whole nightmare side by side, and after the police were done with us, we just sat in silence on the curb. I think we were both too numb to talk. Eventually she stood up, said, "Take care," and walked away into the night. I never saw her again. But sometimes, late at night, especially when I'm walking alone, I think about how close we came to just disappearing. One wrong car. One small coincidence. That's all it takes. This happened in 2022 when I was still living in Chicago. I'd just gotten out of a long, weird situationship, and I wasn't in the best mental space. That night, I'd gone to meet a couple friends at a bar in Wicker Park. I didn't feel like drinking much, just enough to take the edge off. So around midnight, I decided to head home early. I live about 20 minutes away on the north side, and I didn't feel like dealing with the train that late. So I called an Uber. I remember this clearly. My app showed a white Toyota Camry, plates M19, for NE, driven by someone named Ben. 4.9, 3 stars. His profile pic looked average. Older guy, maybe 50s. Nothing about it set off any alarms. He pulled up right in front of the bar about 3 minutes later, and I got in the back. It was a little messy, some fast food wrappers on the floor, a phone charger tangled in the cup holder, but again, nothing weird. "Hey, Ben," I said. "Yep. Heading to Greenview?" "Yeah." He nodded and pulled off. It was quiet for the first few minutes. I sat back and zoned out a little, half scrolling on my phone, half listening to a true crime podcast I'd been binging. I remember the street lights flickering past the window, the usual late-night vibe, empty sidewalks, distant sirens, occasional honk from a rideshare drop-off. Then we missed a turn. At first, I didn't think much of it. GPS reroutes happen all the time in the city, especially with traffic or construction. But then we missed the next turn, and the next. Within 5 minutes, we were completely off the route the app had shown. I looked up. "Hey, I think you missed the turn on Ashland?" No response. I leaned forward slightly. "Hey, sorry, just wondering if this is a new route?" My app says it should have been a left back there. Still nothing. He just kept driving. Eyes forward. His grip on the steering wheel looked tight. I watched the little blue line on the Uber map recalculate over and over as we got farther and farther from my original route. It was like we were heading west, toward the outskirts of the city. "Sir," I said, louder this time, "can you please answer me?" He didn't even flinch. I tapped the back of his seat. "Hello." Finally, he spoke. "Just a quick detour," he said flatly. "Faster this way." His voice was low, monotone. He didn't look at me in the mirror, didn't smile, just kept driving. I knew that was a lie. I'd lived in the city long enough to know the direction we were heading made no sense. This wasn't faster. It was the opposite. I opened the app again. The little car icon was drifting farther and farther from my drop-off pin. Something was off. Very off. I tried to stay calm. "Okay, I actually changed my mind," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can you drop me off here? I'll just walk the rest." He didn't acknowledge me. Just kept driving. I started texting my roommate, "Oh hey, this Uber is going the wrong way. Something's off. I'm sending you my location." Before I could hit send, the screen froze. My service bars dropped to 0. I looked at the corner of the screen. No service. That made no sense. We were still within the city limits. I'd never lost signal in this area before. Not once. That's when the panic really started creeping in. My stomach tightened. I tried the door handle locked. I looked for the lock switch, nothing. Some newer cars don't have them visible in the back, apparently. I glanced at the driver. His face was blank, like a statue. Eyes on the road, hands at 10 and 2, like he was pretending I wasn't even in the car anymore. "Listen, I'm serious," I said, louder now. "Let me out. I'm not comfortable with this." No reaction. I reached up and tried to open the rear window. It moved half an inch, then locked again. Child safety locks. I felt like I was trapped in a moving box. No signal, no response, nothing. The streetlights started thinning out. Fewer cars. Then no cars at all. Industrial buildings replaced neighborhoods. Broken fences. Warehouses. Empty lots. "I'll scream," I said. "I will scream if you don't let me out." Nothing. I'm not proud of this, but I panicked. I started kicking the back of his seat, hard. Yelling. Trying to make enough noise to get his attention, or maybe get him to react in any way that wasn't so terrifyingly calm. He pulled the car over. I froze. For one awful second, I thought he was going to come around to the back and open the door. Or worse. But he just sat there. Then he turned and looked at me through the rearview mirror. For the first time, his eyes met mine. And he smiled. Just a small, tight-lipped grin. Not friendly. Not reassuring. Just cold. Then he said, "You're not the first one to scream." That line hit me like ice water. I stopped moving. Stopped breathing. He pulled back onto the road. Slower now. Like he was savoring it. But in that moment, something inside me clicked. Not fear, adrenaline. Survival mode. While he focused on the road, I leaned down, grabbed the cord from his charger, and yanked it as hard as I could. It came loose. I wrapped it around the armrest, looped it like I was trying to make some kind of latch or handle. Then I started trying to wedge my fingers into the side of the door where the lock mechanism should be. Anything. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to do something. I spotted a small metal umbrella on the floor by my feet. Probably his. I picked it up and jammed it between the seat and the door, trying to hit the lock trigger. The car slowed again. He must have noticed the noise. I didn't wait to see what he'd do. I jammed the umbrella harder, and suddenly the door popped open. I flung it wide and threw myself out while the car was still rolling. I hit the pavement shoulder first, tumbling hard onto the gravel. Pain shot through my side and knee, but I got up and ran, limping, staggering, half crawling, into the field beside the road. It was dark, full of overgrown grass and trash. Behind me, I heard tires screech, then silence. I ducked behind a rusted shipping container near a fence and held my breath. Every second felt like a lifetime. I don't know how long I stayed crouched there. Long enough for my service to come back. Eventually, I was able to call 911. I gave them everything. Description of the car, the plate, the route, my location. An officer picked me up 20 minutes later. Here's the part that still haunts me. The plate I gave them, M19 for NE, was registered to a different car. Same model, different color. The Camry I'd been in had a fake plate. The Uber profile? Gone the next morning. Deactivated. Like it never existed. Uber told me they had no record of a driver named Ben matching that profile in my area. My ride history showed no trip that night. I don't know who that man was, or what would have happened if I hadn't gotten out when I did. But to this day, when I get into a rideshare, I still triple-check everything. I memorize the driver's face. I keep my location shared. And I never, ever let my guard down. Because someone out there figured out how to fake the whole system. And he's still driving. This happened in October of last year, and I've only talked about it once, to a cop who didn't seem to believe me. It still feels surreal sometimes, but I swear on everything I have, it happened exactly like this. I work in downtown Atlanta and live about 20 minutes outside the city. It's not a bad commute, but I'd stayed late finishing some reports, and by the time I left the office it was almost 9:30 p.m. I was too tired to deal with the bus transfer, so I ordered an Uber. The app matched me with a driver named Marcus. For 0.96 stars, 100 plus rides, Toyota Corolla. Seemed fine. The car pulled up in 5 minutes, and I got in the back seat. Marcus looked to be in his mid-30s. Clean-shaven, black baseball cap, soft-spoken. We exchanged a quick, "Hey," and he confirmed my destination. Everything about it felt normal at first. We drove in silence for maybe 10 minutes, just cruising through midtown traffic. I was answering emails on my phone, kind of zoned out. Then, out of nowhere, Marcus said, "Hey, hope you don't mind. I just gotta swing by real quick and pick up my friend. He's like a block over." I looked up. That definitely wasn't normal. Is that allowed?" I asked. He glanced at me in the mirror. Yeah, it's on the way. Won't take more than a second." Before I could say anything else, he turned off the main road and started weaving into this residential side street. Older houses, most of them dark. No sidewalks. No reason to be back there unless you live there. I opened the app and saw the blue line veer completely off the original route. "This isn't on the way," I said, trying not to sound panicked. "I'd rather you just take me home." "Just one SEC," he said. "He's waiting at the corner." I stared out the window. We were now in a completely unfamiliar neighborhood. Dim porch lights. No street lamps. He pulled up to a stop sign and just idled. No one was there. Literally no one. No guy on the corner. No car waiting. Just empty yards and silence. I waited a few seconds, then said, "I don't see anyone." "He's coming," Marcus replied, without looking at me. Another 30 seconds passed. Still no one. I could feel my heartbeat pick up. I kept glancing between the rear doors, looking for the manual lock. There wasn't one. Just the slick molded paneling with the child safety switch clearly on. I opened my phone. Tried to share my location with my roommate, but the loading wheel spun forever. No reception. That's when Marcus reached into his cup holder and picked up his phone. He dialed someone. "Yeah," he said into the speaker. "I'm here. Come out." I spoke up, louder this time. "I need you to take me home. Now." No response. He kept the call going, just repeating, "I'm here," like he was getting frustrated. I looked out the window again. Still no one coming. No porch lights turning on. No doors opening. Just that awful stillness. That's when he said something that made my stomach twist. "Nah, she's cool. She's chill." He said it like I wasn't even there. I said, "Let me out of the car." No answer. Then I leaned forward and said it again, sharper. I said, "Let me out of the car." He looked at me in the mirror. Something in his face had shifted. He wasn't calm anymore. His jaw was clenched, and his eyes looked annoyed, almost calculating. Then he muttered, "You gonna make it a thing?" I froze. He wasn't talking to me anymore. He was talking about me. I yanked on the door handle again, uselessly. Locked? Of course. I started to raise my voice, like really yell, but he suddenly pulled forward, making a sharp right onto a narrower street, and hit the gas. The next minute is a blur. I was shouting, trying to reach the front seat, grabbing for the emergency lock, anything. But then he did something I'll never forget. He slammed on the brakes, hard. I hit the back of the passenger seat and crumpled into the footwell. Before I could sit up, he turned around halfway in his seat and said, dead quiet, "Sit back. I'll take you home." Just like that. No anger, no emotion, just cold. I didn't say a word. I sat back, hands in my lap, and stared at the seat in front of me. My mind was racing. What the hell had just happened? Who was he trying to pick up? Why lie? Why the fake phone call? And most of all, why didn't he want me to leave the car? The rest of the ride was dead silent. No music, no small talk. Just the hum of the engine and my pulse pounding in my ears. We got back on a major road eventually. I kept watching the signs, recognizing familiar streets. I was sure he wasn't going to take me home, but then, somehow, he did. My exact address. He stopped in front of my apartment, put the car in park, and finally said, "We good." I didn't answer. I opened the door the second the locks clicked and practically fell out of the car. I backed away as he pulled off, turning down the street and disappearing like nothing had happened. When I got upstairs, I went straight to the bathroom and threw up. Then I sat on the floor, shaking for a good half hour. I reported the ride to Uber that night. The response I got? "Thanks for your feedback. We flagged this trip for review." That was it. No follow-up. No call. No apology. I checked a week later. His profile was still up. Still active. I still don't know what was going to happen if I hadn't pushed back. If I just sat quietly while he waited for his friend. Or if that friend had actually shown up. But what keeps me up sometimes isn't just what he did. It's what he didn't do. He didn't lie convincingly. He didn't even try to cover his tracks. It was like he'd done this before. Like he was used to passengers not asking questions. I was supposed to be just another quiet, tired person heading home. The kind who keeps their head down. The kind who doesn't say anything until it's way too late. This happened in February 2023 on the outskirts of Phoenix. I haven't told many people because I still can't explain what really happened. It makes me feel stupid, but I think that's what makes it so scary, how normal it all felt, right up until it didn't. I was coming back from a work dinner. Nothing fancy, just a team outing at a Mexican place near the office. I'd driven to work that morning but had a couple margaritas with dinner, so I played it safe and left my car in the parking garage. Figured I'd just Uber home and pick the car up the next day. I requested a ride around 9:40 p.m. Driver's name was Brian. Gray Honda Accord. 4.97 stars, over 2,000 trips. Looked like a pretty typical middle-aged white guy in his photo, square face, slight smile, flannel shirt. Totally unremarkable. He pulled up within 4 minutes. I got in, said hello, confirmed my name, and he confirmed the destination I'd input, my apartment complex, about 15 minutes away. I remember being pleasantly surprised at how neat the car was. No smell, no clutter. Quiet music playing. It felt professional, almost corporate. We pulled away from the restaurant and headed north toward the freeway. For the first 5 minutes, everything was completely normal. We made small talk. Weather, traffic, the usual. I wasn't super chatty, but he didn't push it. Then at some point, I noticed he wasn't using the GPS. His phone was mounted on the dash, but the map was minimized. Black screen. I could see my own app still running, but I remember thinking it was weird that it wasn't guiding him. You know the area? I asked casually. He nodded. Yeah, I've lived out here a long time. I'm good. That didn't seem strange in the moment. Some drivers know their regular zones well enough to not need turn by turn. But about 10 minutes in, I realized we hadn't passed the usual landmarks I always see on the drive home. We hadn't merged onto the 51. Instead, we were still on some long side road with barely any streetlights and mostly industrial buildings. I leaned forward a bit. Hey, isn't the freeway a faster route from here? He didn't answer at first, just kind of chuckled and said, shortcuts, right? Then he added, I know what I'm doing. That shift in tone made me pause. He didn't sound friendly anymore. More like irritated or amused. I opened the app and checked the map. We weren't going toward my apartment anymore. Not even close. In fact, the little arrow had stopped altogether. My phone said, trip completed. I blinked. What? My app says the ride ended? I said, holding up the screen. He didn't respond. Just kept driving. I repeated it louder. The trip ended. You're going the wrong way. He said, don't worry about it. I know a better place to stop. That's when I noticed the doors were locked. And then, like something out of a f***ing horror movie, we turned into a parking lot of a motel. It was one of those cheap, run-down places you pass off the highway. Faded sign. One flickering bulb above the office. The kind of place that rents by the hour, no questions asked. He pulled into a spot near the back, near a row of closed doors. Most of the units were dark. He put the car in park and turned off the engine. My heart was in my throat. I don't want to get out, I said. Take me home. Right now. He turned around, slow and casual, and said, You're fine. Just take a second to relax. We'll talk. We'll talk. I repeated, What are you talking about? I said you're fine. He smiled. That's when I realized I had no idea what his intentions really were. It wasn't just about a wrong destination anymore. It was the way he looked at me. Like I was already where he wanted me to be. Like he had all the time in the world. I fumbled with my phone, but there was no service. 0 bars. I couldn't even open the location settings to ping my roommate. It was like the motel sat in a dead zone. I scanned a parking lot. No one around. No lights on in the office. No movement in the other units. And the worst part? He wasn't moving either. He was just watching me in the rearview mirror. I want to go home, I said again, barely above a whisper. Eventually, he said, just breathe. I don't know what snapped in me, but I suddenly reached forward and grabbed the shift knob, slamming the car into neutral. It startled him enough to make him turn sharply, and in that split second, I popped the back door open with all my weight and rolled out onto the gravel. The edge of the door caught my arm hard, and I hit the ground awkwardly, but I didn't stop. I bolted. I ran straight across the parking lot and around the side of the motel, where I saw a utility van parked near the dumpster. The side door was open, and there was a guy inside unloading tools. Construction worker or maintenance guy, I think. I screamed, full-on screamed, and ran straight at him, yelling, help. He tried to kidnap me. The guy jumped down, looked at me like I was insane, then saw the car still idling by the rooms. He started yelling too. Hey, what the is this? That must have scared him off, because the car pulled out fast, tires screeching, and sped back onto the road. The guy called the cops immediately. He gave me a rag for my arm, which was scraped and bleeding, and stayed with me until they showed up 10 minutes later. I gave them everything. The license plate, the name, the screenshots from my ride history, even though it now showed as completed successfully. Uber's support team later told me that since the trip ended without a cancellation or safety flag, no abnormal activity was detected. They said they'd review the driver's account, but nothing ever came of it. I kept checking the app for weeks. Brian's profile stayed up, last I saw. The police were sympathetic but non-committal. Hard to prove intent, they said. No crime was committed if he didn't touch you. I asked them point blank. So he can drive women to motels after ending the trip, and there's nothing you can do? One of the officers didn't answer. The other just said, "You got lucky." They were right. If I hadn't acted when I did, I don't know what would have happened. I've thought about that motel too many times since then. How quiet it was. How empty. Like he knew no one would be around. Like it wasn't the first time he'd gone there. This happened to me late last summer in Nashville. I was flying back from visiting family in Ohio, and by the time I landed, it was almost 11:15 p.m. I was exhausted, a little sweaty from the flight, and just wanted to get back to my apartment and crash. I live alone on the east side, and the airport's about a 20-minute drive depending on traffic. Normally my roommate would pick me up, but she was out of town that week. So I requested an Uber like I've done 100 times before. The driver was named Raymond. For 0.92 stars, black Nissan Altima, plate 6U89PH. Profile photo looked like a regular guy, late 30s or so, short beard, nothing that stuck out. I remember thinking the car was really clean when he pulled up. Spotless exterior, windows tinted a bit but not overly dark. I got in the back seat, confirmed my name, and he smiled and said, "Welcome back. Home from a trip." That was my first red flag, although it didn't register at the time. I hadn't said a word about traveling. I just assumed he saw the luggage. "Yeah," I said. "Just got in." "Long day?" he replied, kind of chuckling. "You'll be asleep in 10 minutes. It was a weird thing to say, but I just gave a polite laugh. We pulled away from the airport exit and started heading toward I-40. About 5 minutes into the ride, I noticed a small camera or phone mount on the dashboard, angled slightly to the right. From the back seat, I couldn't see the screen clearly, but it looked like a phone in landscape mode. I assumed it was for navigation, even though he also had another screen near the center console that was definitely running maps. That struck me as odd. Why would he need two? Then we hit a red light, and the glare of a passing car lit up the front dash just enough for me to notice something. That screen on the mount? It wasn't showing a map. It was showing me a live feed of the back seat. I could see my own face, dimly lit, slightly distorted from the angle, but unmistakable. It wasn't a mirror or reflection. It was a recording. At first, I thought it might just be some sort of dash cam. Plenty of drivers have those now for safety. But the thing was, it wasn't a small GoPro-style cam. It looked like an actual phone. I leaned forward slightly to get a better look. That's when I saw the red dot blinking in the top corner of the screen. Recording. It was definitely recording. I sat back slowly and tried not to react. My pulse had already started picking up. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was a safety measure, and I just hadn't seen it in other cars. Maybe he just wanted proof of passenger behavior. Still, something about the setup didn't feel right. Most Uber drivers will post a sticker saying the ride is being recorded. They usually mention it. It's part of the terms of service in some areas. But there had been no mention of it when I got in. Nothing posted. Nothing said. I opened my Uber app, clicked on the safety toolkit, and tapped Share Trip Status with my friend Ava. She lived nearby, and I figured if anything actually happened, at least someone would know where I was. A few more minutes went by. The whole time, I kept trying not to look at the screen. But I could feel it, recording, steady, pointed right at me. Then Raymond spoke again. "You do video work?" I blinked. "Sorry. You look like someone who does video. You have the face for it." I gave a weak smile. "No, I don't." He nodded, but didn't say anything else. We were about 10 minutes from my apartment, and every part of me was screaming that something was off. I pretended to stretch and lean to the left, trying to see if there were any other cameras I hadn't noticed. That's when I spotted a second mount, this one tucked under the rearview mirror. I couldn't see if it was on, but it was pointed directly at the back seat from the front. I reached down and subtly turned off my phone screen brightness. Then I opened the camera and positioned it in my lap, angled slightly forward. I hit record. I figured if anything happened, I'd at least have a backup video on my own phone. That was when he turned suddenly, taking a left onto a darker side street, not part of the usual route. "Sorry," I said, sitting up. "Isn't it faster to stay on Main?" He didn't answer. "Hello?" Still nothing. "I'd prefer if you just followed the route," I said, more firmly this time. He slowed slightly but didn't turn around. Just said, "Almost there." We were now in a residential area, quiet, low lighting, no cars in sight. The houses were spaced out, some with overgrown lawns. Definitely not close to my apartment yet. I tapped the app again and hit the Call 911 feature. It pulls up a confirmation screen before dialing. I had my finger hovering over the button. Then I saw his eyes flick to the mirror. He'd noticed me looking down. He definitely saw the screen lit up. "You don't need that," he said calmly. "Relax. We're just talking." "We're not talking," I said. "You're not following the route, and you're recording me without permission. I'd like you to pull over now." He kept driving. "Please pull over," I said again. "Right now." We reached an intersection, and, thank God, a car passed through going the other way. Headlights filled the street. In that moment, I reached for the door handle and pulled. It was locked. I didn't even think, just started shouting, "Let me out." "Unlock the door." That must have startled him, because the car jerked slightly and he reached down, probably trying to hit the child lock. I didn't wait. I hit the window with the base of my phone as hard as I could. Once. Twice. I don't know if it was the noise or the panic in my voice, but he finally pulled over, hard. I heard the locks click. I threw the door open and ran. I ran straight up the sidewalk toward the house on the corner. Porch light was on, but I didn't even knock. I just stood in the driveway and called 911 from the lawn. The car peeled off seconds later. Police showed up maybe 7 minutes after that. I gave them everything. The driver's name, plate number, screenshots. I even showed them the video I'd captured from my lap. It was grainy, but it clearly showed the screen on his dash recording me, and it clearly showed him ignoring my questions. The officer told me they'd file a report and someone would follow up. I never heard back. Uber support responded to my complaint with the standard message, "Thank you for your feedback. We take safety seriously and will look into this matter." A week later, I checked the app. Raymond's profile was still active. I stopped using rideshares after that. If I absolutely have to, I sit behind the driver, I keep my phone recording, and I never, ever assume a clean car and a friendly smile mean I'm safe. Because someone out there is using that job to collect videos of strangers. And for a few minutes, I was one of them.